Can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Craig? Mr. Hayden?
Here.
Mr. Giuliano?
Here.
Mr. Nuss?
Here.
Ms. Ranzan?
Here.
Did you hear me?
Steele? Mrs. Steele? Yep, I heard you. Mrs.
Here.
Steele?
I'm here.
Okay. Mrs. Stoll?
Here.
Mrs. Whitty?
Here.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Would you please join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the
of the
flag
United
of the United
States of
States
America,
of America,
and to the republic
republic
which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and
liberty and
justice
justice for all.
The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies in which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Sussex-Wantage Regional School District Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in the school building and notice of said meeting sent to the New Jersey Herald and the Star Ledger.
School district is a responsive, caring, child-centered community. Our mission is to educate each individual to become a confident, competent, lifelong learner and a productive, responsible citizen by providing challenging opportunities in a safe environment through a partnership of families, schools, and communities.
Thank you. At this time, we will move on to the report of the superintendents of schools, and I'm going to ask anyone that's not speaking to please mute your mics. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. D'Agostino, members of the Board of Education. Thank you for hosting us tonight. So the intent of tonight was to kind of present a day in the life, if you will, of returning back to school under this new paradigm of AB schedule. And Mrs. Thimolakis, our Director of Curriculum, has done an extensive presentation, try to model for you via Google Classroom, a whole host of different areas and topics. She's overseen a number of different meetings with our curriculum council and reopening folks. And, as you can imagine, not everybody agrees on every aspect of various things. But, it's a very comprehensive look. Is it perfect? By no means will it be perfect. There'll be growing pains that we have to endure, adjustments that we need to make, because although the remote learning idea isn't unprecedented anymore. This new variety of AB schedule and coming back to school under this new the paradigm is somewhat new. So I'm going to turn it over to her to just kind of walk us through the various elements, and then I think, Kaylee, this will be posted so folks can kind of review it later. I think it seeks to answer a number of questions, everything from student temperatures to some elements of instruction, and they're generalized examples, and I know she'll cover that. And certain things may look different in a K2 level than in a middle school level, but trying to give folks an overview of what that is. So, Mrs. Thimolakis, why don't you take over?
All right, thank you. And I'm very excited to present a day in the life. Again, as Mr. Gall said, we have created this presentation through Google Classroom. And for the purposes of this presentation, I will pretend to be a student and navigate through the various assignments. Google Classroom is the platform that many of your children will be using. So I'll start my first assignment by navigating up here to the classwork tab. And our first assignment is welcome. So I'll click on that assignment and then select the video.
My name is Kaylee Themalakis, and I am the Director of Curriculum for the Sussex-Wantage School District and the Vice Principal at the Sussex Middle School. Welcome to our presentation of a day in the life of a 2020 student. Throughout this presentation, we will be showing you what life will look like as a student, parent, and teacher in our new realm of education. As you can see, we have accessed this message through Google Classroom. Within this presentation, we invite you to be the students and to see what hybrid and virtual education will look like using the platform of Google Classroom.
Google Classroom is the primary organizational platform that the teachers and your children will be utilizing in the fall to communicate with and interact with their teachers, learn new instruction, collaborate with their peers on assignments and projects, reinforce concepts and refine skills by reviewing and practicing, and show proficiency of an assignment through assessment measures. Just like your child has a physical classroom, he or she will also have a virtual classroom. Think of it as a hub of their learning. We will share information through various assignments that are posted on our Google Classroom throughout this presentation. This mirrors how your children will communicate and learn from their teachers when they are not in their presence. We will be covering the following topics. What will school look like? What will instruction look like? What do I wear? Coming to and departing from school, navigating the hallways, and cleaning procedures. We will discuss the concept of the paradigm of education, which will be referenced throughout the evening. The paradigm of education is the idea that student learning can and will be enhanced through supporting the child, the teacher, and the parent. By identifying and upholding expectations for all parties within the paradigm, our student learning will improve. We must all work together for our children.
So please sit back, engage, and be prepared to mentally join our digital classroom. We are so excited to have you.
Okay, so as a student, I don't have any questions on my assignment, so I would navigate to the next assignment. If I do have questions, and I'm just going to switch over for a view as a student, I could click on the assignment, and there's prompts that come up, I apologize. And I can either ask my question here in class comments, which is a section where all students can see and respond to, or I can write a private comment, which is a section where only the teacher can see and respond to. I'm now going to navigate back to my teacher view, and we'll go to assignment 2. What will a school look like? Through this next assignment, we will discuss what the structure of the school day will look like. This is a visual representation of what instruction will look like during phase 1 of hybrid instruction. To ensure that the safety of our students, staff, and school community are a top priority, our student body will be divided into 2 cohorts identified as A and B groups. We will operate on a half-day schedule during the first 2 weeks of school. Students will attend school in person on an alternating schedule as part of their assigned A and B cohort. Students within the A cohort will attend school in person on Mondays and Thursdays and will attend school remotely on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Students within the B cohort will attend school in person on Tuesdays and Fridays and will attend school remotely on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Teachers will engage learners throughout the day and will also have additional set or student engagement time built into their schedules daily for a minimum of 1 hour per day on days when they are providing in-person instruction, and for a minimum of 2 hours per day on Wednesdays, which is a virtual learning day for both cohorts. Student engagement time is a time when teachers are available to interact with and support individuals and groups of students and will be optimal for virtual learners. It is important to note that during the first few weeks of a typical school year, considerable time and attention is dedicated to ensuring your child feels safe and comfortable within their new school environment and begins to build a relationship with his or her teachers and peers. As well, classroom and school routines and expectations are created and explained, as is introduction to technology, including the rollout of Chromebook devices if applicable. Perhaps more than ever, at the start of the 2020-2021 school year, significant devotion will be made to these topics, as well as assessing the social and emotional well-being of each child. You are currently able to determine if your child was placed in the A or B cohort by accessing the student information section within the parent portal. In addition, this week, all of the necessary paperwork needed for the upcoming school year will be available electronically on the parent portal. Teacher assignments for students at the Clifton E. Lawrence School and Wantage Elementary School will also be available this week on the parent portal, as well as complete student schedules for students at Sussex Middle School. At the Wantage Elementary School and the Clifton E. Lawrence School, students will remain within their classrooms and with their classroom cohort throughout the school day to the greatest extent possible. At the Sussex Middle School, students will remain with their classroom cohort throughout the school day to the greatest extent possible and will travel to the classes indicated within their schedules. Whenever possible, hallways and stairways within the district will be one-way accessible and will be marked as such with arrows. The hallway or stairway is not able to be traveled in a one-way direction. The hallway will be divided in half with one-way directional markers, as shown here. Students and staff are required to wear facial coverings at all times, and social distancing will be enforced. Hallways, bathrooms, and all common areas will be marked with signage reminding students and staff to maintain social distance, wear facial coverings, and ensure proper hygiene and cleanliness. At the Wantage Elementary School and the Clifton E. Lawrence School, specials including library, art, music, Spanish, health, and technology will be pushed into the classroom environment whenever possible. Students at the Sussex Middle School will be traveling to their specials or CAT classes as they are referred to at SMS. Throughout the district, physical education will be held outside whenever possible to encourage the greatest air exchange. Social distancing measures will remain in place. In the event of inclement weather, physical education will also be pushed into the classroom at the Clifton E. Lawrence School and held in the gymnasium at the Wantage Elementary School and the Sussex Middle School. During phase 1 of the school year, students will be encouraged to travel lightly and keep their belongings with them at all times. Student lockers and cubbies will not be utilized. Students will be permitted to carry their backpacks throughout the school day. Technology will continue to be utilized at all grade levels in the virtual and in-person learning plans. We have had a one-to-one Chromebook initiative in grades 3 through 8 for the past 6 years, and our Chromebooks continue to be updated yearly. Parts of our virtual learning plan is contingent on the incredible technology we have within this school district, and that will continue. Lunch service will be suspended during the first 2 weeks of school. We are meeting with Machio's Food Service, our food service provider, in the near future with the goal of making lunch available for those who have participated in the lunch program in the same manner that we have since the beginning of the school closure. More information will be forthcoming. We are anticipating on expanding our lunch program as we move into phase 2 of our plan, which may expand the schedule to full days. The paradigm of education was discussed during the welcome video. The following expectations are provided for this section. The student will follow his or her A-B schedule and keep his or her belongings organized and at their desk while learning. He will walk through the hallways while maintaining social distance and give their best effort in their virtual and physical classrooms. As well, they will ensure they have nutritious breakfast each and every day. The teacher will provide virtual and in-person learning opportunities. They will ensure students are maintaining social distancing within the classroom and within the hallways. And the parents will log into the parent portal to obtain their child's schedule, provide a book bag for their child, follow their student's A-B schedule, support their child in his or her learning during virtual days, and provide their child with a healthy breakfast and lunch daily at home. Okay, so I don't have any questions as a student, so I'm going to navigate to what do I wear? And I want to thank our talented models, Travis, Grace, Ethan, Gracie, Jackson, Lincoln, Carson, Roman, Hannah, Rachel, and Amy. Thank you. What do students wear to school in 2020? In addition to showcasing a student's unique and developing style, there are some additions to your child's wardrobe this year. We will discuss those within this assignment. A change in our school attire is the addition of a mandatory face covering. Any cloth face covering that covers both the mouth and the nose is recognized as acceptably protective. Throughout the last couple of months, your child has likely become comfortable utilizing his or her own face coverings. We would like to encourage them to continue to wear their own face coverings as we start the new school year, keeping in mind that all dress code expectations will continue to apply. If your child misplaces or forgets his or her face covering, one will be made available. Keep in mind, we will all be wearing one together. Only visitors with appointments will be permitted to enter the building and must also wear a face covering as well. In addition, students must remember to be mindful of their attire. At the middle school level, locker rooms will be closed until further notice, so students will not be able to change for physical education class. Within all grade levels, on days when you have physical education, please be sure to wear comfortable clothing and sneakers. Here, the student on the left may have difficulties participating in certain physical education activities due to her attire. The students on the right are more prepared to participate in physical education because they are wearing sneakers and comfortable clothing. The paradigm of education continues with attire. The following expectations are outlined. The student will be expected to maintain social distancing within the classroom and hallways and wear a mask on the bus and throughout the school day. As well, they are expected to wear appropriate and comfortable attire as locker rooms will be closed during phase 1. The teacher will ensure that students are maintaining social distancing within the classrooms and hallways and will provide education about and reinforce the use of facial coverings throughout the school environment. The parent will ensure that their child has a face covering daily and educate their child about updated safety and hygiene procedures. As well, they will support their child in wearing comfortable clothing that can be worn during physical education days. Okay, so now we're going to take a little bit of a break and play a Kahoot game. So I know the answer, so I'm going to ask anybody that is logged on to this Google Meet, if you want to shout out what you believe is the answer, please go ahead and do so. So the Kahoot is to kind of assess where we're at. I can't use a nickname that I've already used, so there we go. Oop. And it can link right up to the Google Classroom. So shout out your answers. I have phys ed today. Should I wear these shoes? A picture will pop up.
No way.
No way. Correct answer. Face coverings are worn only on the bus. Is that true or false?
False.
I heard false. Good job.
No.
If I'm assigned to cohort A, what days do I attend?
Monday and Thursday.
Monday and Thursday. Oh, I didn't click it. I didn't click it quick enough, but that was correct. Nice job. Sorry.
So we got all the questions right and we still failed.
If I'm assigned to cohort B, what days do I attend virtually?
Tuesday, Friday.
Monday, Wednesday.
Virtually, this is a
Monday,
trick
Wednesday,
question. Monday, Thursday, Wednesday. Monday,
Wednesday, and Thursday. Nice job.
that was a trick question.
It was tough. One in there. And last question, true or false? I can bring a backpack to school.
Yes, true.
Good job. Awesome. Thank you for participating. And it was user error on my part that we didn't score a top score, so I apologize. All right, so we'll now navigate to what will instruction look like. We will now discuss the question that is on everyone's mind. What will instruction look like during this new realm of education? Within this presentation, we will provide a variety of sample schedules and sample instructional guidelines. It is important to understand that these are merely samples and will look different depending on your child's grade level and/or academic program. As we have touched upon thus far, the paradigm of education discusses enhanced student learning through support of the student, parent, and teacher. Within this assignment, we will walk through the essential components or building blocks of a lesson. As we move through the lesson, the teacher and student interaction will be highlighted. I invite you to think about the parent component as well, which will vary depending on the developmental stage of the child. For example, for our younger students, parent involvement in the virtual environment is critical. As the children develop more independence, the instruction reflects that. The first building block of a lesson is instruction and modeling. Direct instruction, which this is usually referred to, is the transfer of information from a source to the student. The purpose is to teach about a concept, showing students how to. In a traditional setting, this is typically about 10 to 15 minutes of a lesson. Within a hybrid setting, this will continue to be 10 to 15 minutes. As we walk through the building blocks together, I'm going to dissect the second grade lesson of learning to tell time to the nearest 5 minutes. For the direct instruction component, the teachers may have a clock, introduce the shape of a clock and identify the parts, the face, the hands, etc. The teachers may discuss the lines on the clock and what they each represent, and so on. This would be the direct instruction. I will now play an example of direct instruction from the middle school level that I borrowed from a teacher who engaged students in her Google Classroom last spring. I'm also not going to play the lesson in its entirety.
Hi, today we're going to talk about life in a castle. Okay, so you probably heard fairy tales about kings and queens and castles. There's always something magical going on in the fairy tales. Wizards, witches, and fairy godmothers are likely to be hanging around the castle, casting and breaking spells. Castles are real. However, even some of the characters...
Just an example. And you'll be able to see the full video if you'd like to learn more about castles. The second building block of a lesson is discussion. The goal of discussion is to engage higher order thinking via communication about the instruction. In a traditional setting, this may typically account for about 5 or so minutes of a lesson. Within a hybrid setting, the timing will generally remain consistent. For our telling time example, our essential question could be, why is it important to tell time? Students who are in person will verbally share their answers as the classroom teacher monitors the discussion and encourages students to share. Students who are virtual learners will have access to the essential question via Google Classroom, as the teacher will have posted it there. The students will be encouraged to engage in a virtual discussion by typing in their responses below the posted essential question. All members of the Google Classroom will be able to read and respond to the question and to other students' answers. The teacher can frequently check the Google Classroom during the school day as time permits to promote enhanced virtual discussion for asynchronous and synchronous learners. The discussion can also be encouraged during our set period or our student engagement time period. The third building block of a lesson is research and exploration. Within a traditional lesson, this is a more independent activity. Within a hybrid model, this will also be a more independent activity for in-person learners and for virtual learners. The classroom teacher will provide the in-person learners with a task to complete with the goal of providing time for the learners to independently explore and visualize the concept. For our telling time example, the teacher could provide learners with a physical clock, and they could explore the clock, move the hands, observe the parts, etc. She will also post an assignment with directions and all resources needed to complete the assignment within the Google Classroom for the virtual learners. The assignment for the virtual learners could be a picture of a clock and students are invited to make observations about it, or the assignment could be to walk around their own homes and locate a clock and take some time to observe the clock. While the students are independently researching and exploring, the teacher will be walking through the classroom and engaging students and monitoring the classroom environment. Teachers will monitor their Google Classroom environment and engage students virtually throughout the school day as well. And in each of these, it's just kind of an example of how this lesson could be done virtually in addition to in person. The fourth building block of a lesson is collaborative tasks, or providing students the opportunity to collaborate and share learning with their peers. The classroom teacher monitors student interaction and encourages collaboration. For our telling time example, the teacher could ask in-person learners to turn and talk to a partner while maintaining 6 feet social distance. For example, students can discuss something they learned, show a function of one of the parts of a clock, or show one another specific times that they have discovered. This is a time where students can learn from their peers and also be empowered to show their peers what they have learned. For students who are attending school virtually, the Google platform is made for collaboration. Students can collaborate via Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, to name a few. A teacher is able to create a prompt, for example, posted on Google Classroom, and students can directly edit the assignment to begin collaboration. For group projects, students can directly edit one shared slideshow presentation. Shall the teacher present a task which students are encouraged to collaborate with the teacher, collaboration will occur during set or student engagement time. While students are collaborating with their peers, teachers are monitoring student interaction and promoting collaboration for their in-person learners and monitoring their virtual students via Google Classroom frequently throughout the lesson as time permits. I have a short example, but as you can see, students can drag arrows places, and then I had a conversation with myself over here, but you can ask questions. So Cindy asked, how do I move the hands? And I, as the teacher, can respond back to her on this. Great question, Cindy. Oops, sorry. The fifth building block of a lesson is practice and review. Within a traditional lesson, this is a more independent activity. Within a hybrid model, this will also be a more independent activity for in-person learners and for virtual learners. The classroom teacher will connect students with practice and review activities to reinforce their understanding of concepts and help them refine their skills. To keep with our example, the teacher could provide independent practice in the form of a worksheet or interactive practice activities utilizing our district technology tools such as BrainPop or Khan Academy. The classroom teacher continuously monitors understanding of concepts by circulating through the physical classroom and checking in with remote learners as well via Google Classroom as time permits. The teacher will provide feedback and work with virtual students to further develop an understanding during student engagement time. The sixth building block of a lesson is assessment. The classroom teacher will create an assessment with the goal of assessing student learning and mastery of concepts and skills. For our example, the teacher may create a Google form quiz to assess if students are able to tell and write time from an analog clock to the nearest 5 minutes. Students can participate in the assessment in person or electronically via a posted link on Google Classroom. Teachers provide modifications and accommodations per the child's individualized educational plans if necessary. Teachers review the assessment results and use the information gathered to guide instruction and plan for concept reteaching if necessary. Here's an example, and we don't need to play this game, but how a Google form can be used. And of course, developmentally, there are many different ways to assess student learning. It does not have to be a Google form specifically. The final building block of a lesson is reflection and metacognitive skills building. The classroom teacher will create a means of engaging students to openly and honestly reflect on their learning. This may be referred to as an exit ticket. Our math teacher instructing time created a Google Doc journal entry that posed 2 questions. What did you learn? And what questions do you have? Students answer these questions in an effort to reflect on the lesson in its entirety and learn to distinguish individual strengths and weaknesses. The teacher can use this information in addition to the assessment information to further engage with the individual student or class as a whole if necessary. So again, an exit ticket, it will drastically differ in presentation for the various developmental levels that we have here. and is created informally just to gauge student learning. This one was created in a journal entry, could be created as just a question anyway. Thank you, and I hope this provided a glimpse as to what education will look like within our hybrid model. What is important to understand is that traditionally, this process that we walk through very rarely occurs effectively within one class period, and is more commonly spread over a couple of days or even a week-long process. As well, the building blocks can be relatively interchangeable throughout the course of the lesson. This building block model was not solely developed for the purposes of hybrid instruction, but instead is based on the same sound instruction that teachers have been utilizing for the duration of many of their careers. What we focused on was taking existing pedagogy and good instruction and making it accessible to all learners. Due to our changing dynamic of instruction, the additional set or student engagement time that is built into the schedule is an enhancement that is critical for ensuring student success and engaging student learning within all environments. Student engagement, of course, occurs throughout the school day, but the additional student engagement time will occur for a minimum of 60 minutes per day on days when students are learning in person and for 120 minutes on remote learning days for all students. Teachers have the discretion of breaking this time period up throughout the school day in an effort to engage as many students as possible. The additional student engagement time is a time when teachers will meet with students regarding present building blocks, to discuss previous building blocks, or to preview future building blocks. I have included a sample draft of a daily schedule for an elementary school child. This does not necessarily depict the schedule your elementary child will be following, but instead serves as a visual guide. When school opens in a hybrid model, middle school students will follow their normal class schedule that will be available within the parent portal. As you can see, on days when all students are learning remotely, which will be on Wednesdays, in addition to continuing to learn through the building block that day falls on, additional student engagement time is built into the schedule. Oh, I see that we received a class comment from Mr. Kronsky, who's on my account. He says, do we still have to do weekly rundowns? So I, as a teacher, received this, and I'm going to type back, great question. From a student, I'll just say, yes, we still need to complete those. And he will receive that message as well. And he, I believe, posted publicly so that all students in the class can see that as well. Thank you for that example. I'm going to move to our next section. Within this assignment, we will be identifying the expectations of the teachers, parents, and students, specifically related to teaching and student learning. This section can seem overwhelming, but by supporting one another, we can all do our part to enhance student learning. Within this presentation, we will provide a variety of sample schedules and sample instructional guidelines. It is important to understand that these are merely samples and will look different depending on your child's grade level and/or academic program. We are in this together. The paradigm of education is exactly that, enhancing student learning through supporting the child, the teacher, and the guardian. While reflecting with stakeholders on our crisis instruction from March to June, it was clear that although the speed at which we all adapted to the altered learning environment was impressive, some of the identified areas of improvement were consistency and communicating expectations. All teaching and learning expectations will be explicitly laid out within the following presentation. Teacher expectations. This year, teachers have the additional challenge of reaching and engaging learners wherever they may be seated. Teaching and learning will look different, but will continue to be effective. The following expectations were discussed. Teachers will be responsible for creating and maintaining a Google Classroom in which students will be an active participant. Daily per subject, a video message will be available for students to view, which will provide an additional way to foster connection and engagement. This message will have the daily student expectation as well as the applicable building block of the lesson for the day. Back to the telling time example. If the building block the teacher was on that day was instruction and modeling, he would post a video of the direct instruction component. If the building block that day was practice and review, he would post a video of the assignment expectations and sources needed, if applicable, to review the skills. The teacher will also monitor and provide feedback to in-person and virtual learners. Elements of the lesson will be made available to both in-person and virtual learners, including time to reflect on the lesson and student skill checks. For the 2020-2021 school year, our instruction will be enhanced and student engagement will be a top priority in both the virtual and in-person environment. All teachers will have additional set or student engagement time throughout the school day in addition to their in-person teaching schedule. During phase 1, as we discussed in the last assignment, additional student engagement time will be for a minimum of 60 minutes per day on days when students are in the building, and for 120 minutes per day minimum when students are not in the building. This time can be broken up throughout the day at the teacher's discretion in an effort to engage and interact with as many learners as possible. Teachers will also provide feedback to learners via their shared documents and Google Classroom. Teachers will continue to encourage students to further develop their collaboration and creativity skills and encourage in-person learners to collaborate with virtual learners via technology tools when and if appropriate. Grading will return to a traditional format, and gradebooks will be kept up to date. An additional expectation is that educators will continue to collaborate with their colleagues regarding additional strategies and will collaborate with colleagues and parents in order to meet the needs of each student and to provide resources to foster learning opportunities. Parent expectations. The involvement of a parent has always been so important, but when school moved home, the parents were quickly forced to become facilitators of learning in addition to the already demanding job of being a parent. Expectations discussed include the following. Parents will help students form an organized routine, support their child in his or her learning goals, support their child in his or her accountability, stay up to date with information on the available portals, and be engaged in their child's education and learning. If parents have a question or concern, they should communicate directly with the classroom teacher. In addition, parents shall provide their children with a quiet space, free of distractions when they are learning from home whenever possible, and assist or encourage their child to begin his or her day by logging into the Google Classroom. Parents should watch with or encourage their children to view and listen to the daily video and ensure that their child is following the acceptable use policy when participating in the learning plan using an electronic device. As well, parents should frequently stay involved in their child's Google Classroom. Parents may have to assume all student expectations as well, depending on the age and/or developmental level of their child. We will review student expectations next. Student expectations. This year has been turbulent, to say the least, for our student body. As we prepare for another school year, we are prepared to support students and help them form a new routine and sense of normalcy during this difficult time. We have discussed the following student expectations. Students will be expected to enter their physical and virtual classrooms prepared for learning with all necessary supplies, engage in their conversations with their teachers and classmates, and check for their daily expectations. Students will participate to the best of their abilities and give their best effort throughout their academic environments. Students must follow the acceptable use policies and refrain from eating or drinking while using a school-issued Chromebook. As well, if a problem arises, navigate to correctly problem solve, such as contact your teacher as the first step. Grading will return to a traditional grading system, so be sure to submit assignments to your teacher or Google Classroom when they are due. As well, respond to feedback provided by your teachers, as it is intended for student growth. In addition, while learning virtually, locate a quiet space free of distractions while participating in virtual learning, and watch and listen to the daily video. Complete your daily learning objectives and maintain contact with your teachers. Teachers want to and are ready to engage with your child, so students are highly encouraged to join in Google Meets, upholding the Google Meet etiquette. An additional student expectation is to use available portals to access technology questions. For example, our school website has resources listed that are designed to support students and parents. Shall the governor move in the direction of pivoting to remote learning for all students, the plan we have created will assist to move in that direction, as all stakeholders will be familiar with the expectations. In the event that we need to pivot into district-wide remote learning, students will follow their typical schedules with the teachers who they have built a relationship with. Expectations discussed throughout this plan will remain in place, and teachers will be expected to meet their full contractual hours. The minimum additional student engagement time will increase daily, as in-person learners will not be present. This is in an effort to engage as many learners as possible throughout the school day. Our goal is to maintain as much student interaction as possible, and we will be able to do so by continuing to engage frequently with the students via Google Meet. Thank you. This all could feel and read very overwhelming, but we can do this, and we can do it together in the best interest of the students. When we all do our parts, student education will be enhanced. Sorry, having a little technical issue. Okay, so I have no questions there, and I don't have any questions as a student. So I'm now going to watch this video about coming to school. Our next assignment will discuss what arriving to school will look like. Prior to boarding the school bus, we are asking parents and guardians to self-screen their children at home for illness or a temperature above 100 degrees. As the cohort model will result in reduced ridership on our bus routes, students will be able to physically distance more significantly on the bus. However, we may not always be able to maintain a distance of 6 feet, so students must wear face coverings at all times while on the school bus and while also waiting at bus stops.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
To the greatest extent possible, students will board the bus from back to front and they will unload from the front to the back. Students will be able to share a seat with siblings and will physically distance to a greater degree from non-sibling students. This video demonstrates siblings boarding the bus first, heading to the back of the bus, taking a seat and placing their seatbelts on, while non-siblings board after, maintaining increased distance whenever possible. We will now see what departing a bus may look like. Students remove their seatbelts when the bus comes to a complete stop, then depart the bus from the front to the back whenever possible. When students arrive at school, they will maintain social distancing to the greatest degree possible and keep their face coverings in position. They will be screened upon arrival. We will have wall-mounted and handheld temperature scanners at entryways. Any student who has a fever or exhibits signs or symptoms of illness will be isolated in a location that ensures dignity while his or her parents are contacted to pick up their child. For parents who choose to transport their children, our procedure is replicated and students will need to be screened upon arrival. Parents and guardians will need to wait until their child's temperature is deemed suitable prior to departing the drop-off lot. The drop-off locations at each building have not changed and are in the same locations as in previous years. At the closure of the school day, student dismissal times will be staggered to the greatest degree possible in an effort to allow for increased physical distancing. The paradigm of education continues with arrival and departure procedures. The following expectations are outlined. For the student, wear your mask at the bus stop and while on the bus, and follow the directions of the bus driver. For the bus driver, ensure students are wearing their masks while on the school bus and strategically assign bus seating. And for the parent, ensure your child has a mask each day. Self-screen your child each morning and keep your child home shall they exhibit symptoms or have a fever exceeding 100 degrees. And if dropping off your child, wait patiently for them to be screened prior to departing the drop-off lot. Remember, we are in this together. Thank you. And thank you to our talented actors and actress with help with that video as well. We will now navigate. There's one comment. Oh, what an awesome video. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you, Marianne. So I'll now navigate to the cleaning procedures.
Hello, I'm Frank Petrowski with the Sussex-Wantage School District. I'm in charge of the buildings and grounds. I just wanted to go over quickly our cleaning schedule for the night custodians and the day custodians, as they will vary ever so slightly. The reason for this, the variation, is with the populations of students and staff within our building, there will be certain things our day custodians can and cannot do with staff and students in the building, and there are certain things our night custodians can and cannot do with having staff not present in the buildings. So to begin, the cleaning schedule for our day custodians will somewhat mirror their cleaning schedule that they perform typically throughout the day. However, there's going to be more of an emphasis on touch points such as door handles, bathroom entrances, exits, panic bars that you see on the doors going in and out of the school, water fountains. However, we're still waiting more guidance on the water fountains, and this may be something where we're going to have a district policy where we may go an alternate route and use water coolers instead of water fountains. Stairwell handrails, light switches if applicable. Most of our classrooms are actually outfitted with a motion sensor, so the light switches are essentially non-existent. So when a person walks in the room, they go on and off. They have a timer. Not that staff or kids touch those a lot. It's really the teachers turning on the lights or the custodian. So the restrooms, we'll be cleaning those on a rotating basis during the day. The nurse will be on upon request because we might not have kids using that restroom on a frequent basis. So you would be disinfecting the sinks and toilets, disinfecting miscellaneous touch points, soap dispensers, paper towel dispensers. We'll be sweeping and mopping the floors throughout the day. We'll be doing the light switches again, if applicable. Same thing applies there. Most of the light switches in the bathroom are actually turned on and off via a keyed switch, so that students cannot turn those off during the day. We'll move on to the CAF. And same thing, this may change right now. The cafe is not going to be used, but it would encompass disinfecting the tables, sweeping and mopping floors, and emptying garbages and disinfecting the garbages. In the classrooms, this is where it's difficult for the custodians to clean in the classroom when kids and staff are present. So really, what they're going to be focusing on is any empty classrooms that may be vacant during the day, and also the garbages. So that's going to be part of our checklist during the day. And obviously, when they empty those garbages, they'd be putting a new liner in them, cleaning the garbages if necessary. So going to the night custodians, it's a little more in detail. Same thing applies here. They'll be following their general cleaning schedule that they perform every night, and this is going back years. The only caveat to this is they're going to be focusing more on door handles, bathroom entrances, exits, panic bars, as we said before. Same thing with water fountains, stairwell handrails. Same thing with the light switches, if applicable. Most of our light switches in the hallways and in the classrooms, like I said, are either keyed or they are remote sensors. The restrooms in their assigned sections And I say assigned sections because the day custodian will be doing all of the bathrooms on a rotating basis. The night custodians will just be assigned their bathrooms in their own sections. So same thing applies there. Clean and disinfect sinks and toilets. Clean and disinfect miscellaneous touch points, soap dispensers, paper towel dispensers, locks on the stalls. Sweep and mop the floors. Disinfect the partitions. Light switches if applicable. Classrooms, same thing, it's their assigned sections. They'll be going into each and every classroom every night as they normally do. They'll be emptying garbages, replacing the bags, cleaning the receptacle. This is a normal procedure. Clean and disinfect all desktop chairs. Same thing here. It's a normal procedure. So they'll just be more focused on the desk and chairs, where normally they come in, they'll do the desktops. They might not do the chairs. In years past, this, we're going to be focusing on every aspect of that desk. Clean and disinfect door handles. Sweep and mop the floor in the classrooms. Light switches, again, if applicable. Clean and disinfect sinks, countertops, and fountains, if applicable. Most of the sinks, countertops, and fountains are mostly at Lawrence School. There isn't any sinks found inside the classrooms in the middle school and Wantage School. Very few and far between. So I want to move and talk a little bit about the signage we'll be putting up. So you'll see, and many of you probably seen, you go to Acme or the supermarket or any retail store, I'll say, and you'll see the arrows on the floor one way. We're going to be doing something similar to that. There'll be a center divider down the middle of the hallway, arrows on each side of that divider for one-way walking. In some schools, we will have like a one-way kind of like stream through the building, so they're not going back and forth against each other, I'll say. And the arrows will mark, we're going to try to keep the arrows 6 feet apart so the kids have, I'll say, a visual representation of where that 6 foot mark is, so they can try to socially distance as much as possible in the hallways when they're changing classes. And once again, this is more geared towards the middle school, where they're going to be going from class to class. So you'll see some of that on the floors throughout each and every building. We also have the new equipment coming. So we have these electrostatic guns, which put a negative charge on the chemical that you put into the machine. So when you spray a surface, instead of it laying onto the surface, it will coat around. I don't know if you can see my hand here. It will coat around to the bottom side of the surface, where a normal spray gun or a normal spray bottle may not be able to get. Think of it as almost as painting a car. When they paint your car, when they put a positive charge on the car or the paint, same thing applies. So we've also got confirmation that our Halo fogger has also shipped recently. That's going to be used in the event where we need to take it into a room to disinfect. We set a timer that correlates to the square footage of the room, and it dispenses a very fine mist which coats every surface within the room. It's safe for electronics. There's no wiping. You go in, you set it, forget it, come in the next day, everything's disinfected in that room. We also have this new cleaner that I wanted to touch base on, and they call it a bio-esque cleaner for the fact that it's natural. It's actually derived from the thyme plant. And I just wanted to mention this because versus our neutral disinfectant that we currently use now, the neutral disinfectant has a 10-minute kill time. And when I say kill time, that's to kill any bacteria or any virus on the surface. So you spray it, you leave it sit for 10 minutes, you come back and wipe it. The bio-esque cleaner, which I just mentioned, has actually a 4-minute kill time. So we're essentially cutting that time in half. And it's natural. It's safe to use around the kids. I'm sure many of you are familiar with thyme plant. You use it in your food for flavoring. So there's not that possibility for it to get on someone's skin and irritate them, or a kid to breathe it in. It's natural and it's safe. Just wanted to talk about the hand sanitizer that we've also provided each and every classroom with. In every classroom throughout the district, you'll find a gallon jug. It's about yay big. It has a pump on the jug, which can be swapped from jug to jug. Those are found in each and every classroom, like I said. And also we will have, actually we incorporated this before we left in March. We hung a bunch of wall-mounted units. I think the percentage of alcohol in those hand sanitizers is 65%, which meets the CDC guidelines. We also have more of that on order to keep those replenished as they empty. And they're found throughout the building by the nurse's room, media center, in all your main hallways, I'll say. I'll move along to the Univents. I just wanted to clarify what the Univents are for and the filters found within those Univents. So your Univents basically are to heat and cool. I wouldn't say cool because none of them have air conditioning in our district. They're to heat the building and bring in fresh air with that. So the filters found within the Univents do not filter out viruses and fine particulates. They are there to filter out debris from outside coming inside. So they will filter out things like large pieces of pollen, dirt, grass clippings, and what this prevents is the debris from making its way up and into the coils of the Univent, because once it makes its way up into the coils of the Univent, or even the air conditioner for that matter, it will clog the coils and the Univent or AC unit will not work as efficiently as it should. So the filters, like I said, they've all been changed and replaced as we do every summer. This is just normal maintenance. Actually, we do it 2 times a year, usually in the winter and then in summer. But like I've said, they do not filter out viruses. The same applies to the AC units found within the windows. It's a very fine filter, and basically the filter prevents large particulates, dust, dirt, grass clippings from entering outside into the coils of the air conditioner unit and clogging up the coils.
The cleanliness of our buses has always been a priority, and the process has been enhanced due to COVID-19 virus. School buses will be cleaned and disinfected between every route using ES64 cleaner. Special attention will be given to high-touch areas such as handrails, seats, and seat backs, and emergency handles. Whenever possible, windows will be kept ajar to allow for increased airflow. Our contracted bus companies have also released documents discussing enhanced cleaning procedures and their commitment to cleaning, protecting their employees and passengers, and allowing students to ride with confidence. We can all do our part to assist with cleaning procedures through the paradigm of education. The following expectations are outlined. Students will wear facial coverings and maintain social distancing. They will practice appropriate hygiene, such as frequent hand washing. Custodians and bus drivers will ensure adherence to cleaning schedules. And parents will ensure that your child has a mask each day and enforce and educate appropriate hygiene. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. Petrowski. I have a little section here of from the experts. So just a little document from our school bus company that was included in the video, if anybody wants to take a look, and also one from Havens. And then the Department of Health anticipated response.
I've included a table of how we anticipate the Department of Health responding to various situations. The Department of Health created this guide with the assumption that there is low confidence that students and teachers can remain 6 feet apart during a class period, and there is low confidence that students can be 6 feet apart on the school bus, and that all bus trips are longer than 10 minutes. As well, when a 6-foot distance cannot be maintained, the use of face coverings and physical barriers in a classroom are protective measures to decrease the risk of disease transmission. The Department of Health describes that they anticipate responding to a confirmed case, student or faculty, by possibly recommending school-wide virtual instruction for 1 day to allow the health department to complete an investigation and contact tracing. All students and faculty in class or on a bus with a confirmed case are quarantined for 14 days, and the person with the confirmed case will isolate for at least 10 days since their symptoms first appeared, and they have been fever-free for 24 hours, and they start to see an improvement in symptoms. In the event of a probable case, the Department of Health may respond by recommending the same response unless a probable case tests negative, and also recommend testing for the probable case. If a student or faculty member reports symptoms of COVID-19 with no known exposure to a confirmed case, the Department of Health may recommend that the individual stays home for at least 10 days since their symptoms first appeared and they have been fever-free for 24 hours. The symptomatic person is recommended for testing, and they may return earlier after a negative COVID-19 test or alternative diagnosis is confirmed. In the event that a student or faculty has been in close contact with a confirmed or probable COVID-19 case for at least 10 minutes, the Department of Health may recommend that the student or faculty quarantines for 14 days from the last date of exposure. Okay, and our last activity is to assess student learning. So it's in this case, it's an exit ticket. Again, this could be in the form of many different ways to assess student learning. I chose to do a Google form. It will differ drastically in presentation for the various developmental levels for the student. And this one is more appropriate for higher level learners. So what is one thing you learned today? Mr. D'Agostino, what is one thing you learned today?
I learned that there will be masks worn in all situations. One thing, so that's masks worn in school all the time.
All right, excellent. Anyone have a question on today's lesson? Mr. Kronsky asked one earlier regarding the weekly rundown. Do that one. And yes, we still have to do that this week. And which mode of instructional delivery did you enjoy the most? So I'll ask Mrs. Woody, what mode of instructional delivery did you enjoy the most? Did you like the Google Slides presentation, the Kahoot skill check, the live engagement, which we're seeing right now through our Google Meet? We're all definitely absolutely in different locations, and we're still able to collaborate together. Or did you like the pre-recorded videos the best?
Well, actually, I had watched this earlier with my granddaughter, who is going to be a sixth grader. We watched it together, and she was actually liked all of them. I liked all of them too. I myself actually liked the Kahoot because, of course, we had a little fun with it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your feedback. All right, so then that can submit, and the teacher will receive that feedback and can engage student learning. So thank you so much for having me and allowing me to present. And I hope that everybody gains some insight about what being a 2020-2021 student will look like.
Thank you,
Hey,
Mrs.
Haley,
Similak.
it's Ken. I have a quick question.
Sure, good.
You gotta unmute yourself. Ken, you're muted, Ken.
Is he still on? Let me see.
Yeah, he's still on. He's just muted.
Mr. Nuss, you have your mute on. Can you hear me?
You gotta unmute yourself.
Well, while he unmutes himself, I just want to say, Mrs. Demelakis, that was one of the most, if not the most clear, concise, impressive presentations I've ever seen. And I just want to thank everyone that took a part in it. And again, thank every stakeholder, from parents to teachers to board members to the administration for all the hard work they put in over the summer. But that was really special to watch. And I know, if I had kids in the district at this time, I'd feel very comfortable sending them to school after watching that. So thank you.
As the curriculum chair, I also would like to thank everyone, Ms. Demelakis, who put that presentation together. I just wanted to sit and tell everybody that over the last 6 weeks, we all have been, as the curriculum committee, have been spending our Wednesdays together. Mrs. Whitty and Mrs. Steele have also put in a lot of work. The three of us have sat on 3 meetings, right, for 3 hours, along with the curriculum coordinator and the admin, and I think did a fabulous job coming up with a plan. As teachers, and I'm going to say that as myself because I am a teacher, we were challenged with a very hard and incredible, huge undertaking last spring, and without much guidance. And I, as all of you know, I support all of the teachers, and I think most of you did a fantastic job. We turned our dining rooms and kitchens into a classroom, and we just went at it. But we didn't have much expectations. And so this summer, we have expectations of the students, expectations of the teachers and the parents. And I think that is going to really help us move forward in a more concise, structured manner. And that's what we need. We need our kids to have a more structured way of going to school. It's going to look different. Like Mr. Gall keeps saying, it's going to look different. But I believe that the teachers, the parents, the students are going to rise and do tremendous things this year, especially the teachers. I mean, I've been a teacher for almost 25 years. And I feel that it's scary for us to find out, how are we going to do this? How are we going to reach the kid at home? How are we going to reach the kid in school? How are we going to do this? We will do this because that's what we do. That's who we are. So things are going to fall into place. I don't think we're going to know everything at the same, right now, August 12th. I don't think we're going to know everything, but I think everything's going to fall into place. We just have to take a big sigh of relief. And I think Ms. I got it right the first time. Thelamakis, I did it wrong now, but okay. I've been practicing all day. But I think she did a wonderful job in showing us how it's going to look. And I applaud you. I think it was brilliant. Very well done.
Thank you, Mrs. Ramsdale. Mr. Nuss, are you back? Mr. Nuss, are you back? Or
if I could piggyback on what Mrs. Ramsdale had indicated, I want to thank Mrs. Thimmelakis and all the people who participated in these various discussions. I know there's not always agreement. And we're going to continue to have challenges and work through those things. Some of the questions that you have coming up, is everything going to be live streamed in a class? We certainly want to take advantage of that medium. So some of the things that Mrs. Thimmelakis talked about with those peer interactions with the teacher, set times and breaking up the set times throughout the lesson, that's what she was referring to with Google Meets. Part of the challenge that we're going to have to work through is some of those things are going to look different depending on grade level, right? So there needs to be this kind of balance between the professional's perception and the parent's perception of what's best instructionally, right? Because this is a totally different medium. So in our regard, we need to build upon the notion of when we really didn't have a strong understanding of how to get this done last year, we need to build upon the notion of just assigning work, right? We want to engage the student, and this is the only medium we really have for that, for a virtual capacity. And on the parents' end, there needs to kind of be an understanding that I've touched on this, in a couple different meetings that, in my opinion, having taught college level hybrid type things, this medium was really designed for that venue. High school, kids can foster independence to a degree in this, maybe even middle school, and later in the Wantage school. But as you get very young, it becomes more challenging to think that you can sit a child in front of a computer and captivate their attention for, an hour and a half, and then do that all day. So that's what Mrs. Thimmelakis is trying to show you, breaking up different pieces of instruction so that sound engages the student, and you have that live interaction for those set times and for those video productions. In some regards, as we work with the teachers throughout the school year, where that first week really in the afternoons is designed for collaboration and PD and sitting down with them and talking, because we've been out for all summer. If you do the direct instruction piece for 15 or 20 minutes, in looking at this video over the screen, if I was like writing on the board or something, it wouldn't look great. So I may actually ask them to do a Google slide or a voiceover component that may actually work better. But we definitely want to bridge that divide from home to school with live interactions via Google Meet. Nick, if I can, before we go into executive session, because we have a kind of a lengthy executive session, I can do a round of the questions that we've received thus far.
But Ken,
Nick,
Ken wanted to say
Yes,
something.
yeah, Mr. Nuss is
Yeah.
back, I believe. Mr. Nuss.
I've been having technical difficulty here and got bumped out 3 times. So I apologize. I haven't been able to hear the last 3 or 4 minutes.
You didn't hear me, Ken. I said wonderful things about you.
Thanks, Colleen. Well, I'm going to start with that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So if any of these comments were made or asked, I apologize. So again, Kaylee, I think it was a really good presentation. I could tell a lot of time went into it. A few questions that I did have and I didn't want to type. You were showing in the presentation how a child would be able to ask a question by typing it either, to the classroom with all of the kids and or the teacher. And I was wondering, what are parents to expect, as far as response times back to the child?
Yeah, so I can interject there a little bit. I wouldn't feel comfortable in this moment giving you a response time. I think that fluctuates based on a class outcome. So for example, if I have a group of 10 students in a traditional classroom and, I did my 10 to 15 minute direct instruction piece, right, that everyone can take advantage of. And then I combine it with an I do, we do, you do type thing, right? So if I say, okay, now it's time for you folks, you kids to practice, and I circle around to each group, I might think of the group at home on my Google Meet as a group. So I might get to them or in their classroom after I've circled through other groups, right? So it's not as proficient as just a student raising their hand in your room and physical. But we want to maximize that opportunity to the greatest extent possible. Again, I couldn't tell you it's 30 seconds or 80 seconds.
No, I understand that. I'm still trying to understand the kids that are home. They're not necessarily being able to attend the actual class that's going on virtually, correct? That's not happening.
I think there will be some opportunity for that as we work through it. And again, it depends on grade level. The other, just because it jumped into my mind, one aspect of some of that's going to have to take place is we got Kaylee talked about in real-time parent portal, you're going to have new permission slips for the school year, different things parents sign off on. So one of them is an updated technology acceptable use policy that'll encompass some live streaming permissions. So we really have to take a look at those too.
And then, okay. And the other question I had was the requirements for like a video message. Is that literally just that, a message? Is that like that's what's expected?
So I went through the building blocks of a lesson. So typically they're about So it could be if we're working on research and exploration, which is one of the building blocks, my video message could include a simple hi. And then today we're going to be working on research and exploration. Today you're going to finish you're going to take your clocks and you're going to go on this website and write down 3 facts that you've learned about clocks. Thank you. And I'll be available at 1:15 if you'd have any questions. And I'll be available at 10:15 if you have any questions. And then continue with and then go to your in-person learners. Or it could be a 10 to 15 minute direct instruction component, depending on which building block it is. So they can kind of vary.
Okay, so I guess I still want to make sure I have an understanding. If we were to go all remote, and again, I'm sorry for keep bringing this up. I know, I do personally want the kids back in school, but if we do go all remote, the expectations are going to be a little bit different? Are we going to have live interaction at some point? Like, I know that that's a concern, and I just want to have everyone on the same page. I know other people have the same question, you know, and it wasn't quite clear because the verbiage that we see in the presentation states a video message. So I'm just, you know, if we're fully remote, is there going to be interactive conversations going on?
Yeah, we're going to try to facilitate that to the greatest degree possible. Again, contingent upon the age of the student and the permission.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nuss. Mr. Konski, I know that there was a couple of community members that had emailed me asking to participate in audience remarks. So if you want to work on getting them on, Mr. Gall, you said you have some.
Yeah, I can go through the ones we have thus far. I know we're probably going to have a lengthy executive session. So if I can get to these now, that would be great. You comfortable?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had reached out to those the people that wanted to make comments.
Okay.
And but we would be doing that after executive session as to keep it more secure. Once I give them the number, they got the number.
Right. Well, we can see when they come in or not. What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Gall? Because it might be quite a while till the next public comment section.
Yeah, I think Mr. Konski just has a concern about being able to.
Because I won't be there either.
Yeah. So he doesn't want this executive session breached in any way.
Okay. All right, well, we can do that then. Go ahead, Mr. Gall, if you'd like to continue.
So first question up, this person doesn't, I don't think really identify herself. It may be Barbara Latza, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Just a couple questions. First, if we have remote learning in the beginning of back, classroom learning at any time or vice versa, what we're saying is that you keep your choice for the marking period. What exactly remote learning looks like, I think, you know, Mr. Marcus's presentation will be posted for you to look at that, but it's quite, is there a deadline to notify schools of our decision? I think I will give you a week from today, so we give folks the opportunity to, you know, kind of review the presentation on their own, solicit any questions they may have from the principals, and you'll get that in a notification email like we've been sending out.
Those people are ready now.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh, sorry. We have a statement on behalf of SWEA from Lisa Fahrenfeld, SWEA president. First, I would like to say that I respectfully asked in a letter addressed to the Board of Education Administration this morning that my name be removed from tonight's presentation as a participant in the reopening committee due to the fact that this was not a collaborative effort. The section titled Teacher Expectations was not agreed upon nor approved by myself or any other teacher that participated in these meetings. I would like the community and all district staff to know these were not expectations. Regarding the policy you're presenting for remote learning, I would like to know who wrote this policy and why the need for such detail. I do understand the need for expectations and guidelines, but I don't agree with everything that is outlined in the policy. I'd like further discussion on this and more reasonable input. Lastly, I'd like to say this. I truly don't think we're 100% prepared to return to school. We still have not received any professional development, which is needed in order to fulfill what you've outlined as teacher expectations. There are still many questions that I have that are left unanswered. Questions about how will we function during the school day that have not been mentioned in the presentation. Today, to say I feel uneasy and unsettled is an understatement. My comments and statements are on behalf of SWEA and support of all district staff. I hope you reconsider your policy, your expectations, and understand we have a lot of members with sincere concerns. So Lisa's first question about the policy, who writes the policy? So all of our policies are written by a company, a firm called Strauss Esme. You know, if you look at if you cross-reference the policy with the plan, they basically develop templates for both, and they're designed to meet the requirements of what the state put out in their guideline packet. So that's why they're so extraordinarily detailed. And, you know, I know the board and myself and Mrs. Timolakis, we were trying to balance that perception of engaging the stakeholders to the greatest degree we could, including that thought process into the planning of this, but we're also trying to build upon what went on last year to support everyone's needs. So, you know, I know teachers are committed to supporting their students and we're committed to supporting staff. So, you know, if somebody's, hey, you know, I'm having trouble with this one particular issue. I want my Google Meet to function better or whatever. You know, I'm happy as a principal to jump in your classroom in a invasive manner and help walk through it with you. So, you know, in essence, we're there to support you because ultimately it's the kids who are going to benefit from that. Next comment from Ms. Jennifer Forsyth. Hello, hope you're all staying safe and healthy. A few questions. Do you have an estimate of how many students would be in each classroom? So generally our class sizes, fluctuate from 20 to 24 students depending upon grade level. So we're looking to cut all those in approximately half. So generally speaking, about 10 to 12 students. Now please don't come in and, Mr. Gall, there's 13 in my son's class. Generally speaking, approximately, that's what I'm referring to. Will there be a deep cleaning after the cohort A group for the cohort B group? Yeah, we've gotten some questions about this and we talked about it in a couple of different meetings. So those half a days, again, is to help a variety of different things, not just instructionally the teachers preparing, but a cleaning function. So at the end of each day, there's cleaning in addition to that Wednesday where we're all totally remote. And there was great discussion, not just internally, but with our external region about the options that the state of New Jersey laid out. And they gave we didn't pull these out of, thin air. They basically gave us these different options as suggestions. So, you could have my original thought was potentially go AA, then a break, then BB. And in talking, engaging the teachers in the process, some of them brought up some very valid concerns about instruction and, the frequency with which you see students. And, if you did AA, then students wouldn't, almost see their teacher in person for, approximately a week. So it helps in that regard. Other options were, an entire week of A, an entire week of B. And then in talking to the Department of Health, and just eliciting their understanding and kind of the process that they go through, Mrs. Thimolakis touched on the notion of, so the people, as it's been explained to me, again, I'm not a health professional, but I don't know if you could just mute yourself. But in understanding their process, basically what they're looking at to identify if you did have someone with coronavirus, who are the people who would be people that they would consider close contacts who would have the potential to have been exposed to those individuals, right? So they're saying that has to be somebody within 6 feet for 10 or more minutes. And they make a concession to schools in that they, in my interpretation of what they say, they're basically going to assume that everybody in a classroom who interacted on that day could have fallen into that category. That's when she said those assumptions. But in society, I don't think they generally do that. It's 6 feet for 10 or more minutes. So in that paradigm, when you combine the instructional perspective of those folks who shared, the teachers who shared that with us, combined with the Department of Health's approach to identify those close contacts, the kids on the separate day won't be in that. They haven't really made significant references to, touching items and things like that. Obviously, they want you to clean thoroughly, but that didn't come up in their definition of close contact. Some of these, just bear with me, they're multi-part comments or questions. Are we allowed to give going to school a try and then sticking with virtual if not completely comfortable? I think I have to go back and look at the governor's order, but I think that the governor's position was that you can go remote anytime, case in point, if you have a scenario where there's a perceived coronavirus case or actual coronavirus case. Do you have enough Chromebooks for every student if needed? Mr. Kronsky, I don't know if I think actually, Ms. Forsythe, you've been on a number of these meetings. So Mr. Kronsky, our tech director, has gotten any number of accolades. His favorite statement is anybody who's ever asked for anything has gotten what they needed. So third, we were in a good position for devices to the extent of third through eighth was always 1-to-1. So what we're asking is that if you already have a device at home and you don't need our device, we'd still like to take advantage of that simply because Lawrence School, although we've ordered more, Lawrence School is not 1-to-1. And, very appropriately that kindergartners, first graders, wouldn't be as conducive to using a laptop all day as a middle school student, maybe. So in short, again, and he's maintained anybody who's ever needed anything, he's gotten it. What does Governor Murphy's new plan mean for us? Public schools, parentheses, in New Jersey will have the option of starting the school year with no in-person classes if they meet certain criteria. So in this moment, in this conversation, this meeting, I don't think it really changes anything for us. What she's referring to is Governor Murphy, did a press conference today where he announced the onset. He's basically signing off on all school districts. You're able to open in the state of New Jersey, but wanted to give certain school districts flexibility. My understanding, it's if you meet certain criteria. I haven't been issued anything from the Department of Education at this juncture, but as you can imagine, it's a topic of conversation around the county and the state. So our county has a meeting with the county superintendent on Friday, where we anticipate getting more information about that. This statements from Kimberly Robine, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. If not, I sincerely apologize. Actually, that was inadvertently read. I'm going to go to the next one. So next statement, Governor Murphy stated today that only certain districts can start remotely. How will this affect the parents who are choosing to do remote for the school year? Will parents be able to remote teach? Again, I don't think it affects us in the moment. We have the county has a meeting on Friday. It wouldn't either way impact people choosing to do remote learning. I don't see why. And will parents be able to remote teach? I don't understand that portion of the question, but I think it's connected to the other one where I don't think it would have an impact on you. Question from LB, when you are virtual, you're streaming the in-person instruction at the same time, so it's like they are sitting in class. Your child is in the B cohort and starts on Thursday, 9/3. The first day will be remote. So we kind of touched on the streaming portion. It's a little more comprehensive than just, including sound instructional strategies. That's correct. If you're in the B cohort, it would be the following day. Question from Ms. Joanne Merrill. Just a quick question. If the BOE is still meeting virtually, why are we having our children do in-person instruction? So it's a great question. I know it'll be a topic of everyone's mind. So the board had previously designated this. We were planning to meet in person. The caveat was that Governor Murphy issued a change order in his indoor gatherings, down to 25 people. We sought legal guidance on that and basically came back that we didn't want to limit it. We didn't want to be in a position to limit our audience members, and we would have had to just, on the staff who comes to board meetings is quite a large group. We've gotten subsequent clarification from the county superintendent just a few hours ago that, because the next question is, well, if there's 25%, how are you going to meet that in an opening to school? And according to what she provided, schools wouldn't be incumbent to follow that because of the procedures and the plan that you've already submitted. So hopefully the governor's office will clarify that in a press conference.
Then, Mike, if I can, we have 138 people viewing the YouTube stream now. So we would have never been able to have 138 people at the meeting.
Right.
Yeah. Next question is from Miss Laura Roney. Hello, thank you for the day in the life video. There's so much information to understand and think about. I appreciate the efforts that went into making this Google Classroom and all the efforts that have been put forth over the summer, trying to come up with the safest reopening plan. Will the Halo fogger be used for deep cleaning on Wednesdays and Friday evenings? Are the deep cleaning methods that I understand will be happening on a remote Wednesday be safe for staff to be around if staff is required to be in the building? In watching this section where students are arriving, who will be monitoring the mounted thermometer? Will that be a healthcare provider? And watching the video, I'm not clear on who will be doing that. Understand that the phase 1 soft opening is a 2-week time period. Do we have dates we're counting as these 2 weeks? Do they start with the student's first day? So just circling back to some of the questions. So the Halo fogger, and Frank can jump in if you'd like, but the Halo fogger will be used on a rotational basis. So what we're looking at is primarily nurses' offices and instances where you perceive a potential case. Yeah, all the chemicals that we use in school, they're safe to be around. If we're using the Halo fogger, we wouldn't have you in the room at that time. You basically put it in a room, program it, and shut the door. As far as monitoring the mounting thermometer, that'd be a healthcare provider. The only healthcare providers you have in school are really nurses. So those will be people who have duties, arrival duties. And what we're trying to do with that is to help facilitate kind of a self-check. Now, that's not going to be as smooth with the large school students' age. We'll have to intervene with a handheld, probably frequently. But we're going to ask you to be a facilitator of trying to understand students checking themselves. And again, it starts on the premise, the whole thing only works if there's a collaboration between school and home, right? So in theory, if at home parents and guardians are being diligent and taking temperatures and, doing a question, how you guys feeling, how you feeling before you go to school, they would, in theory, again, intercept 6 students. Dates. So when we say 2 weeks, we're looking at September 21st to be the first day, again, assuming all goes well, assuming nothing changes. I've previously said at this time, right? As September 21st is the day transitioning to full days, right? Still maintaining that A and B cohort, but doing it full days. And that gives us a chance to work through all these little nuanced things and help with the lunch program, because that's an entirely different challenge. The next question folks will have is, well, when do you think we'll assimilate everyone into the school building? And there's nothing more I would love than to give you a date that you can plan around. I just don't know how realistic that would be. Part of my concern, so in general, I'd be looking to look with our pandemic response team. So that's a group of people from each school who help make decisions of that nature. But again, all goes well. We don't have any major hiccups. You'd be looking at October. Now, please don't go run out and plan around October, just because I'm concerned about the notion of, as I'm sure many school districts are, that October, November, that you're approaching cold and flu season. And I don't know how that's going to manifest in the state of New Jersey schools. But that's kind of a general idea. So the 21st is the time frame, again, barring an unforeseen circumstance.
Mr. Gall, I'm just going to stop you for a second if I can. I'd just like to get the members of the public on the phone to be able to comment so they don't have to continue to hold, and then we could continue the email comments. We have Mrs. Simons and Mrs. Sparta on the line, I believe, so I'll just go in alphabetical order. So Mrs. Simons, if you have a public comment, please continue. Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we could. Yes, sorry, we could hear you.
Okay. All right, just making sure. I just wanted to touch on a couple things. I'm really getting tired of hearing from the union rep about the union. I'd really like to hear more about the students. The last meeting, I feel that, certain board members, I don't know if it was a specific board member, it seemed to be, was kind of threatened, bashed. It's not the first time that this person has gotten up and done so. it's been done to myself just because I was on the board and we were bashed for picking Mr. Gall as a superintendent. I feel that every time something happens that she doesn't like, she gets up and she bashes the board, threatening with ethics violations and such, when in fact I feel it's the other way around. You know, these board members are up here volunteering their time, and I'm sure you guys are on overtime right now, more than we were during the superintendent search, to, you know, try to make things work right now. So, you know, bashing board members is not the way to go. Threatening board members is not the way to go. And I would just hope that some disciplinary action is going to be taken at some point against this teacher, because quite honestly, I don't think the rest of the teachers want to play hardball the way that she's playing right now. You know, we're in the middle of a horrible situation. You know, around town, all you hear is, I hope nothing turns out this way like it was last year. Last year was a disaster. We need change. It can't be like last year. It's all over social media. Everybody says it. There's not many parents that are going to come forward and say, hey, last marking period was a charm. We had a great time. And you guys weren't prepared. I get it. But now you guys have had 6 months and the parents have expectations, you know? And just, you know, if somebody brings a point up and says, hey, you know, my kids were lacking last marking period. Some teachers were great. And I'm speaking from experience, okay? I had a kid in the middle school. And, you know, I heard from teachers, from parents in all different schools, Lawrence, the Wantage, the middle school, and I have a child in the high school. And it goes for all schools. You know, some teachers were great. And I'm going to tell you right now, some were missing in action. Emails went unanswered. It happened. So instead of attacking a board member and telling them you're going to put ethics violations against them because they're voicing their opinions regarding the issues they had with their own children and all the complaints they're getting from all the people in the community, why don't you say, hey, what could we do about this? There are issues. Guess what? There's good and bad apples in every profession. Just because you're a teacher, and I'm not anti-teacher, but just because you're a teacher doesn't mean that everybody's doing a great job. And if everybody didn't complain about that last marking period, I honestly feel that, you know, there wouldn't be such an effort to try to comply now. But now we're getting pushback like, oh, well, I don't agree with that policy. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Well, how about this? I don't want my taxes to go up $426 a quarter like they just did for my kid to get half an education. Like, who's dropping off a ukulele to teach my kid music class now? Is everybody getting a box of Crayons dropped off for art class? I mean, gym class? These are all things that aren't going to happen anymore. And our taxes are the same. And honestly, it's really, really frustrating to hear somebody get up there and bash board members that are talking about the community's concerns. These are the concerns we have. The kids are number one, by the way. I think we're all forgetting that. It's not the union. It's the teachers. It's the kids that are number one right now. So, you know, I just feel like there has to be some kind of discipline for this bullying that's going on every time someone speaks their mind at a board meeting. They're not up there to get bashed to death if somebody doesn't agree with them. Then I also, you know, realized in her last speech that she gave during the last board meeting when she was bashing board members that, you know, she let everybody know that, you know, teachers had a hard time last marking period because they were at home taking care of their own kids. Well, that's a red flag to me, because I'm going to tell you right now, then I'm going to raise my hands real high and I'm going to say, if that's the case, then I don't want my kid to be in a class of a teacher who has little kids at home to take care of, because it's not fair to my child. And it's not. It's not. If you're going to tell me that you can't teach a class from home, because we know we're all going to be remote at some time, right? Because somebody's going to test positive, they're going to close the schools, we're going to be back to square one. And that's fine. But you know, we can't have somebody saying, well, I can't teach because I have my own kids at home. Well, guess what? The guy that's pumping your gas has to find somebody to watch their kids, and so does everybody else. So that is a big concern. And I don't know if she meant to bring it up, but she brought it up, and I didn't even realize it until she said it. But that's a big problem if we're going to have teachers that have to take care of their own kids. Kids need to be structured. They need to be waking up this marking period. If we're going to be working from home, then everybody needs to be on their computer at 8:30 in the morning and have a regular schedule, not some floating schedule up when my kid goes to sleep and takes a nap, or after I make this bottle, I'm going to take care of everything. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't. So as much as the union might be mad, the parents are really mad now too. And maybe a lot of parents don't have the nerve to get on here and say it, but they say it all over social media. And I'm going to be the voice that says, yeah, you know what? We do have expectations. And believe me, my kids had excellent teachers, but my kids did have some teachers that had no regard for anything. So, you know, that's where I stand. And I really hope that other people are going to open their mouths, because I've been reading it all over Facebook for 5 months now, and I'm really getting sick. of nobody speaking up. And I'm really getting sick of only one person getting a platform to bash board members that are speaking for the community.
Thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Simons. At this time, Mr. Sparta, are you on the line?
I am. Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Mr. Sparta, I apologize. Thank you again, Mr. Simons. Mr. Sparta, go ahead. I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I want to first off thank you all tonight for the opportunity to speak. I want to focus on some general concerns and issues from the last couple of meetings, and then I'm definitely going to put together an email that I'll send off to you, Mr. Gall, with some questions regarding tonight's presentation. Most of you are probably already aware that my wife and I have been and will continue to be very much involved in doing pretty much everything we can to assure that our 3 children have every opportunity possible to have access to a top-notch education. Some of you may think we just enjoy voicing our opinions and showing up at the meetings when they're open meetings and talking, and that couldn't be further from the truth. We would love to be able to just sit back and observe as this board and this administration guide us through our children's educational experience. But when there's obvious issues that we're not happy with, we can't just sit back and keep quiet. We're hopeful that by speaking up, there's an opportunity for positive change that will hopefully benefit everyone in this district. So with that said, I'd like to take some time to speak not only for myself, but on behalf of many other parents who share the same feelings that I do. But unfortunately, the parents I'm referring to all feel as though it's a complete waste of their time to even attempt to voice their concerns, whether it be through email or calling in or showing up to a meeting when it was possible to do that. So at this point, I have to almost agree with them that it may very well be a waste of my time, but I'm not the kind of person that would keep my mouth closed. I'd rather open up and speak, even if it does fall upon deaf ears. So I was hesitant to send an email. We tried this, my wife and I, a few times in the past, a couple meetings, and one time that my wife sent in a rather lengthy email. It was paraphrased and important parts were left out. So I felt like tonight, since these were my thoughts, I felt it was best that, if possible, I call and speak directly from my mouth to your ears and hope that you all listen closely and keep an open mind. So over the past few years, I've spoken out and I've asked my share of questions to this board and to this administration, whether it be through the public forum that's available at the board meetings or through separate emails to administration. Disappointingly, in return, I've gotten very few answers with any substance that was actually useful in addressing the issue or question at hand. There were a few times that I got answers to my questions, but there were also many times that I did not. With that said, there's many issues that concern me. However, tonight I want to focus on just a few that are most pertinent right now. I can't help but to start up by talking about something that I found to be very disturbing. And it kind of echoes the thoughts of the last caller. Over the course of the last 3 meetings or so, the situation that unfolded between the board member who was basically bringing up several of his own concerns, and as it just so happens, concerns that are shared by the public. And I happen to be one of the public that also had these same concerns. And the questions were raised for discussion because that board member, along with members of the public, myself included, had been unable to get answers to some of these questions. And in fact, the one email that I was referring to earlier that was sent in to be read at one of these meetings was not, we didn't get the answers to the questions that were asked, which were these same questions that were brought up by this board member. And then what happened after that was the disturbing part, where the board member was basically verbally harassed and threatened by the district's teachers union rep, who contradicted her own argument because she obviously didn't have her facts straight. Obviously everyone's entitled to their own opinions and interpretations regarding this issue, but in this particular case, I can't fathom the reaction that occurred from the teachers and the union rep. To me, in my opinion, it's absolutely disgraceful that this type of behavior is allowed to occur in this district. How is it that she's allowed to intimidate our board members? After all, isn't it their obligation as a board member to openly discuss issues in this forum when they haven't been able to get answers to their questions from administration? They should be able to do this freely without concerns of retaliation and threats from the teachers union. As a former union employee myself, and as a director right now that currently works with several union shops, I totally get and understand her obligation to represent her union members' concerns. However, her approach of attacking a board member in a public forum was totally uncalled for. The concerns of her members could have been addressed very easily in a private setting and could have been done in a constructive manner. And just to think that all this occurred because of a discussion regarding legitimate concerns and of the preparedness of this district for the upcoming school year, I just can't comprehend. Fortunately, though, as a parent, I can tell you firsthand, without having to worry about any issues of it being intimidated or violating a code of ethics, that I'm extremely worried about the preparedness of this district with the beginning of the school year only several weeks away. You know, I understand that you're claiming to be ready, and maybe you are. I hope that you are, and it would definitely be a pleasant surprise. But based on what I saw and many other parents saw at the end of the last school year, I've got to say, you know, I'm not convinced. I've been lucky. My wife and I, our son, has been in the district for 3 years, and he's had 3 very good teachers. And when the pandemic hit at the end of the last school year, his teacher was there for him and all of her students. She went above and beyond more often than not, and you know, it was a good experience in a bad situation. But unfortunately, this wasn't the case for many other students. And parents talk, obviously, and especially when they're not happy, they talk. And there are still a lot of unhappy parents when it comes to how this district failed to prepare and respond at the end of last year. It's for this very reason, and information such as what was in the presentation tonight should have been presented weeks ago. I understand that there, you know, was a lot of work that had to go into that, and it took time, but there needs to be some thought as to how, you know, parents are dealing with this situation at home, not having this, you know, pretty much having no information at all. So, you know, it's very hard for parents to trust this administration when you tell us you're ready, when, you know, your last performance was anything but that of a district that was ready. I'm sure you're all familiar with the saying, you're only as good as your last performance. So the students and their parents in this district should be of utmost importance to this board. And sadly, at times, and to this board and administration, sadly, at times, I feel like our thoughts and concerns are irrelevant. I think at times it's forgotten that without our children, you wouldn't have a district or a job for that matter. And, you know, our thoughts and our concerns and our questions are deserving of consideration and answers all of the time, not just when it's convenient or easy for you to respond. I was hopeful that tonight we would finally get some useful information regarding what this school year is going to look like in the, you know, multiple scenarios that are potentially possible here. You know, details are important to parents who have to plan accordingly and who themselves deserve to understand precisely what their role is going to be in these unprecedented, you know, different scenarios that could occur. And let's not forget the children. You know, our children have had questions and have questions. And as a parent, when you can't answer those questions, it's not a good feeling. I feel like the sacrifices that parents have been forced to make and will once again be forced to make have been overlooked through this entire process. You know, you as a group, you know, you guys are the decision makers. You have access to all the guidance, all the information. Yet the parents who are making the majority of the sacrifices until tonight have been left in the dark, not knowing what sacrifices we're going to need to make in the next, and, you know, we're 3 weeks or so away from having to make them. You know, the presentation tonight did answer some of our questions, and I'm appreciative of the time that went into preparing it. You know, better late than never, I suppose. I just hope that as the situation evolves, the district will be able to think on their feet and evolve appropriately. And I'm unfortunately still not convinced. I'm hopeful, but I'm not convinced. But speaking of sacrifices, and then I'll end this up here quick so I don't take up too much time. But I really think it's important that the teachers in their union will be willing to acknowledge that this is an unprecedented situation and that they'll be willing to make necessary sacrifices and modifications to their contractual agreements as needed going forward here as things change, so that our children are able to learn in the most optimal way possible, you know, given this crazy situation. I just hope that the emphasis is and always will be on our children and their education, and not on, the limitations that a union contract sets. So to finish up, I just want to say, this is our children's education we're talking about here. You don't get a second chance with this. There are very few things in life more important than education. And I just hope that going forward, this board puts more effort and energy into being proactive and in informing and involving parents. When I hear you say over and over again at the last couple meetings, or actually for the meetings for the last couple months, really, I keep hearing that it was an unprecedented situation. This is an unprecedented situation. It was an unprecedented situation. And, that's all correct. My concern, however, though, is that unprecedented times require unprecedented action. And unfortunately, to this point, that what I've seen has been anything but unprecedented. In fact, it kind of seems like very much like the same old, and I'm very fearful that that's not going to work. So again, I thank you for the time to voice my concerns here tonight, and I will be reaching out with some emails with some questions regarding the presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sparta, for your time and for your comments. And again, thank you both for joining us on the meeting. Mr. Gall, did you have anything further to add for audience remarks?
Yeah, so next comment up from Ms. Allison Babcock. Hello, 2 quick questions. Are we able to choose full virtual learning for one child while choosing in-person for another? I don't believe this is a one-size-fits-all plan. How you disinfect classrooms in the middle school for students switching classes? So I gotta be honest. This is the first time I've had that question. The governor's put no stipulations on how you choose that for your family. So if that works for you, where you have one child who you're assisting remotely and another child who you position want to go to school, that's fine for us. Again, we're asking you to commit to the marking period. The disinfection, Mr. Petrowski kind of laid out in that procedure. They're going to try to focus on rooms that are empty. Next up from Ms. Cassie Jenks, while understanding the needs and reasonings for the AB schedule, why are we not doing cohort Monday, Tuesday, and B cohort Thursday, Friday? My reasons for the questions are as follows. The schedule for in-person virtual is more consistent for students with an AABB. 2, it will give both groups students equal opportunity to enter a school after a deep cleaning, with Wednesdays being all virtual to start. 3, if a cohort student from Monday shows signs or symptoms of Tuesday, there's a good chance of infecting the B cohort students using the same classroom. It seems to defeat the purpose as far as health and safety precautions for both cohorts. Thank you to all who contributed to the reopening plan. Your time and efforts are appreciated. I think I touched on this. I probably received your email after we talked about that with the Department of Health's 6 feet, 10 minutes or more scenario, and the instructional feedback on the, you're almost a week separate. Question from Joanne Murrow, or comment rather. Thank you for all your hard work and dedication to getting our children back to school. My concern is for those parents that are not available during traditional school hours. For instance, I'll be teaching outside of school district live. My husband is working full time. My son in 2nd grade will not sit for a few hours without guidance. How will we handle this? And that therein lies the dilemma and the challenge of what you're trying to facilitate between home and school, or in a virtual paradigm. And that's where that Google Classroom recorded messages will come into play, where, to a degree at your leisure, you'd be able to assist your child. We understand that there's going to be anomaly situations like that. A comment from Mr. Mark Snook, circling back in the same question I asked last meeting. What was an answer? We'll be offering a school walkthrough at CL for kindergarten students. How will they feel comfortable in the school? We are planning that. The 25 limit rule kind of resulted in a little hiccup to that, but that information should be coming out for next week. We are going to be restrictive in that nature because the kindergarten wing is one area of the building. So we want to combine, everyone's safety, not everyone coming at the same time. So there'll be a window of time in particular for kindergarten students. Comment from Stacy Blanco. Will there be one teacher assigned to virtual students in each grade level? Is there a teacher for all virtual students? And then I decide to send her at the end of the marking period after reassessing the situation. How does that work? Will she then be added to a different class roster? Will be a uniform curriculum timeline for virtual and in-school classes to ensure that if she transitions into an in-person setting, will be at the same point in her learning as the rest of the class. So we're going to assign you to your homeroom. And that's where some of that facilitation, the Google Classroom, the recorded, the Google Meets, that comes into play. We're going to use not a one teacher assigned to all virtual students. That, you know, the idea behind the rationale behind that is, you know, it would be extraordinarily challenging for one teacher to say teach, I don't know, a heterogeneous grouping of, you know, 10 kids from all different grade levels. You wouldn't have enough staff to do one, you know, one virtual teacher for one grade level, you know, depending upon how many kids went virtual for that experience. So that would take some, by assigning them to the homeroom, that takes out some of the, like what you're referring to as a curriculum inconsistency. Ms. Nicole Kuzminski, will there be before and after care? Yes, on the respective cohort days for those cohorts. The board is, that's on their agenda today to approve Mr. Terwilliger's program. Circling back to, again, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Barbara Latza. When's the first day of school? September 1st and 2nd for staff, and Tuesday the 3rd for students. And that calendar should be on our website. We're also in the process of producing those kind of old school flip calendars. We're just putting the finishing touches on those. And that's all I had at the moment, Mr. D'Agostino.
Thank you, Mr. Gall, and thank you everyone for your comments and for emailing. Again, the email is boe2020@swregional.org. At this time, I believe we are going to move into an executive session on agenda items. So can I get a resolution, please, Mrs. Schreck?
Yes. Whereas pursuant to NJSA 10-4-12B, the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education may exclude the public from that portion of a public meeting at which the board discusses any of the matters described at NJSA 10-4-12B 1 through 9. Now therefore be it resolved that the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education shall enter into closed session to discuss personnel and legal matters. Now therefore be it further resolved by the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education that pursuant to NJSA 10-4-13B, the time when and the circumstances under which a discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public is when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Thank you very much. We will be in executive session for approximately 30 minutes. Looking for a motion, please.
Ranzano motion.
I'll second it then.
Thank you both. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, you guys.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kronsky. All right, at this time, we are back in public session, and we are going to move on to the presentation of agenda items.
Thank you, Mr. D'Agostino. Referring to the agenda under personnel, I would like to move item number 1.
I'm looking for a motion, please.
All motion, Ransan.
Thank you, Mrs. Ranson. Thank you, Mr. Nuss. Any discussion on personnel number 1? All right, roll call, please.
Ms. Ranzan?
Yes.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Mr. Hayden?
I believe he's on mute, Mr. Hunt.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Giuliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Stahl? Mrs. Stahl?
Mrs. Stoll, you're on mute. Mrs. Stoll, you're on mute. If you could, what is it? *6? Mr. Kronsky?
*6.
Here we go. Go ahead, Mrs. Stoll. What is your vote? Mrs. Stoll, can you hear us? She's not muted anymore. Georgiana?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Your vote, Mrs. Stahl?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. I have to abstain because I had no internet and I did not get your agenda, so I have to abstain.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under policy, I'd like to move items number 1. I just want to make note for the board in the packet you received for 0152 board officers. The board committee, policy committee's intent was to keep option 2, which remains as is. Specifically, voting shall take place by verbal roll call for nominations. I inadvertently selected option 1. That's not the intent. It's option 2.
Thank you, Mr. Gall. I'm looking for a motion on policy number 1, please.
All motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Steele.
A second.
Thank you. Who seconded?
Mrs. Whitty?
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Whitty. All right, any discussion on policy number 1? All right, if there's no discussion, roll call, please.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. Hayden?
Yes.
Mr. Giuliano?
Yes.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Ms. Ranzan?
Yes.
Mrs. Stahl?
Abstain again. No agenda.
Okay. Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under finance, I'd like to move items 1 through 4.
All right, I'm
I'll
looking
make
for
a
a motion.
motion. Hayden.
Thank you, Mr. Hayden. Looking for a second.
Ransan will second.
Thank you. Do you have that, Mrs. Riker?
Yeah.
All right.
It was a tie. I'll give it to Mrs. Ranzan.
All right. Any discussion on finance? All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hayden?
Yes.
Ms. Ranzan?
Yes.
Mr. Giuliano?
Yes.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Stahl?
Abstain. No agenda.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under curriculum, I'd like to move item number 1.
All right. Looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Looking for a second.
Ransan second.
Thank you. Discussion on curriculum. All right. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Ms. Ranzan?
Yes.
Mr. Hayden?
Yes.
Mr. Giuliano,
Yes.
Mr. Nuss,
Yes.
Mrs. Steele,
Yeah.
Mrs. Stahl,
Same.
okay. Mr. D'Agostino,
Yes.
motion carries.
And referring to the addendum under personnel, I'd like to recommend items 1 through 4 relative to professional development.
All right, looking for a motion on the addendum, please.
I'll make the
I'll
motion.
All right, looking for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Woody. And any discussion on the addendum? All right, roll call, please.
Ms. Ranzan,
Yes.
Ms. Whitty,
Yes.
Mr. Hayden, Mr. Hayden,
I believe you're on mute, Mr. Hud.
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Giuliano,
Yes.
Mr. Nuss,
Yes.
Mrs. Steele,
Yeah.
Mrs. Stahl,
Same.
and Mr. D'Agostino.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, we will move on now to old business. Does anyone on the board have any old business? Mrs. Riker, okay, she's back. I just wanted to make sure she was here for the minutes.
Yeah, I do. I have something. Since we've been having these meetings, have kind of requested that we have, in addition to the people here, the medical professionals, to sort of bring some ease to the staff and the community about where we're going and how, it's a trying time. I would have hoped that we would have had our nurses included in that video, or, and I know there's contractual stuff with that. Also Dr. Markle and some comments from him. We said that there was 136 people virtually attending this meeting, and I just think in order to instill confidence in our plan, that they should have been part of this meeting.
Yeah, so Dr. Markle, something fell through on his end today where he was supposed to submit something to us, and I have to follow up with him tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hyden. Does anyone else? Go ahead, Mr. Nuss.
Yeah, Ken. The presentation tonight was good, like I said earlier. But if we, and I'm going to go back to if we go remote, what do we have in plans for kids with special needs, and how are like I really didn't hear anything about that with our special needs population. Like, how, if we do go remote, what are the teachers going to be able to do or expected to do? And I don't even know when to bring that up, if it's new business, old business. But I know Vicky was supposed to be on one of the presents at one point, but she never got to, at least in the meetings that I was in. So do we have any information that can be shared on that?
Yeah, I don't know if Vicky's still with us, but, special education covers, as you know, a spectrum, a whole gamut of, different ability levels. So, covering in-class support, pull-out resource room, generally the same variations of what we talked about. It's going to be a little more individualized based on the ability of the child and the IEP requirements, right? It may be a little different, especially for a Lawrence School student who's classified to sit and engage in a Google Meets for an entire length of a school day. So we're going to work closely with the IEP teams and the teachers directly to facilitate what's best for that individual student. And again, that's just because it's so individualized. That expanded.
No, I understand that. I guess my concern is if we have to go remote, some of these kids are, need hands-on support. And
yeah.
I I didn't see anything covered in going back, in this back to school presentation that would make anybody feel comfortable that if we went remote, that a child with special needs is going to get any attention. And, I just don't want that to be overlooked.
Yeah, I don't think it's.
Meetings.
I think it's just an entirely different challenge, in particular. So we talked about in-class support, pull-out resource. But when you get into more of the specialized areas and services, certain services can be done virtually. For example, speech therapy. OTP would be able to give outcomes for students to work on at home with parents. But, realistically, I think the state acknowledges, at least at the onset of our closure plans that they had us make, was that some of it is going to have to be done based on regression. So in a regression analysis and then compensatory services for kids, meaning like doubling up on services when you do get back in instruction. Some of it is just not, conducive to the virtual environment. I mean, that's just unfortunately.
No, I know that. That's my concern.
Well, and that a lot of the medically fragile kids probably won't even come in. And so there's another layer of that. So they're going to go remote automatically.
Right. But I still feel like maybe I don't know. I feel like I didn't get any reassurance.
I know that Vicki has put together some information that she has shared with the curriculum committee. Maybe she can share that with the rest of the board.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that
we had stuff together. I just don't know if she was afforded time tonight to.
No, I know the last
meeting. That's a good point, Ken.
What was that?
That's a good point.
It is.
Yeah, because the whole presentation didn't cover anything. At least I didn't catch it. With our special needs population.
I think there was a small section in there about how they're going to, obviously work closely with the parents. But what I was going to say is that they did their ESY, their, the extended school year. And what I heard a lot of positive feedback from that. So I don't want to say that, they've already had a little experience with this, but they've had a little bit of experience with this. And I've heard that they've done some creative things.
Yeah.
So
I did it for Vernon, and working individually with the kids worked out phenomenally. And of course I Zoomed with them. And so it was good because I could, I could interact with them over the computer. Let's make this clear though. Special ed teachers, I'm included, probably have a more difficult time with some of the other students that they're serving. And so they have to be a little bit more creative.
Right. And that's what I said. I heard a lot of good things about this past summer. Of course, that's not everybody, but so far I've heard nothing but positive. And I think that was good. And that the parents were very much involved too. Which, had to be, but they were very willing.
Same with mine. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys for that discussion. Is there any other old business that the board would like to discuss? All right, we will move on to new business. Does anyone have any new business that you would like to discuss?
I do.
Yes, Mr. Hudden.
Yeah, I would like to have the opportunity to do walkthroughs of all three buildings prior to opening with the rest of the board members if they're available, so that we can actually go back out to the community and tell people what we've seen with regards to the different things and the measures that are being taken, and like I said about the medical staff, at least we would be able to go out and speak to our neighbors as to what we've seen with regards to the work that Mrs. Riker and Mr. Petrowski have done to our facilities in order to provide a safe learning environment to our staff and our students.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We probably seek to set that up the last week in August.
Yeah, it's
I, I,
very-
li- I like that idea as well, and especially since,
Thank
you
you.
know, we're not able to do board meetings, in person right now with the executive order. So that is a great idea. Thank you, Mr. Hyden. Does anyone else have any new business? All right, if there's no more new business, we will move on to audience remarks again. Mr. Gall, are there any emails that you
Yep.
received?
The second round here from Mr. or Mrs. Sparta. When can we pick up our children's belongings from CEL? So they're referring to the bagged items that would start next week, and you'll get a phone call, robocall posting about that. Comment from Miss Braga. Mrs. Braga. Good evening, Superintendent Gall and the board. I'm writing to you tonight to voice my opinion. Not sure if you really want it, but I speak on behalf of several Sussex-Wantage families. I feel that in these unprecedented times that I call the period of unpleasantness and what we were handed, the teachers we had at the Wantage School and the middle school worked diligently and did the best they could to provide us with an excellent ongoing educational experience from home. My husband and I were completely satisfied and had no qualms with the quality of education they were receiving. I feel that going forward, keeping everyone safe is the most pertinent and pressing issue. If we cannot safely eat inside a restaurant or go to the movies, how can we send the children and staff into school to be exposed? There's no safe possible way. COVID-19 is just simply too contagious. We feel that it only puts everyone at risk, especially the staff and their families. Until there is no longer a need for masks, then school will simply not be safe to send our children into or staff. Honestly, I'm baffled that the state is pushing so hard to open schools. We all know that wearing masks all day with little kids, big kids, special needs is just not going to happen. Plus, it's not 100% effective, but that's another topic. I don't think it's fair to place everyone at risk. We hope you see how it is spreading in the southern state schools and take note. It is not good and it is spreading. We know and respect all the hard work and time being put into creating schedules and the sanitizing, all the measures you're taking to try to make it safe for everyone, and we appreciate it. We thank you for what you do every day and all the time you take working hard for our schools. But we are concerned with not getting music or not getting gym class, etc. We are more concerned with health and safety of everyone involved. We are confident in remote virtual education the teachers will be providing. With my compromised family consisting of our 10-year-old, Mrs. Braga goes on to note some specific medical diagnoses about her family members who have several chronic health issues who live with us. We have fought hard to avoid contracting the virus for 5 months and will continue to do so. And if that means not attending school in person, then so be it. Wishing you all to stay healthy and well. Sincerely, Victoria Braga. A question from Mr. and Mrs. Sparta. Are there going to be any mask breaks or water breaks, or children and teachers expect to keep their masks on the whole day? There's not going to be a designated break, but I think there's an understanding that you may have to make an adjustment. The reason for not having a designated break is that, you know, you'd be encouraging all students in the room to take their mask off at once. That probably wouldn't be the most efficient use of that scenario. You know, nobody's going to prevent children from drinking water or having a snack. Comment from Mrs. Sarah Moss. Hello, Mr. Nuss. As a parent of a student who has an IEP, my son had OT, PT, and speech over the year and summer. It was a hands-on approach via Google Meets and a collaborative effort between the therapist and parent. Also, in my child's district, he'll be going on a totally separate day to have his therapy so he doesn't miss his in-person instruction. Also, in regards to one-on-one instruction, we did that on Summer Step Up for kids, and they were individual, but the groups were only a 5 teacher. Mrs. Moss indicated that she clicked send too quickly. Maybe this is something they can explore for our special ed students as far as services, because that is definitely a concern for all of us. Thank you for that comment. And that's all I have at this juncture, Mr. D'Agostino.
Thank you, Mr. Gall, and thank you everyone for submitting your comments and questions. At this time, we will look for a motion to adjourn, please.
I motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mrs. Stahl. Looking for a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Nuss. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. Take care. Stay safe.
Take
night.
care. Bye.